Hello and welcome to another edition of Steam Powered PD. My name is Kern Kelly. Today is Tuesday, April 28th. And we're having more and more people join us from outside the district, which is fantastic. Everyone's welcome. Good to see everybody. I hope everyone had a great break last week. And what we're going to talk about today, yesterday we did a little bit on calendars, Google Calendars, and scheduling is so important right now these days, virtual scheduling and managing that. That video is up now, so you should be able to find that right in the show notes. If you go to steampoweredlearning.org, you'll see all that. If you are in RSU19, make sure you do go to RSU19.info, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the attendance link, click on that, as well as all the different resources from the different sessions, as far as the links and if questions get asked, updated, that kind of stuff, I add that all there. So today we're going to talk about, for our topic, today is Chromebooks and specifically hardware. One thing I'm realizing as I talk to parents and students and teachers, they're looking for what things to do with these tools. One of the things that's a kind of common misconception sometimes is that Chromebooks are a little bit limited. They are different than tablets, than PCs, than desktops, and all these different tools. And they all kind of have pros and cons. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, what you're able to do with them, what you can't do with them. And most of the students in RSU19, I don't know if I want to say every student, I'm pretty sure that's the case, but have Chromebooks as their device. We don't have many PCs. We do have some. We have a handful, a smattering of Macs here and there, not very many. And then some desktops, of course, if they have their own home machine. But as far as what we're providing are Chromebooks. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that, what you can do with them as far as beyond just the typical Google Drive stuff and productivity suite, but what you can do even beyond that. So let me do a quick screen share here. So we're going to talk about Chromebooks in the classroom and what that means as far as having a physical Chromebook, again, which is a little bit different than other devices, if it's a tablet or a PC or a laptop or whatever. But we'll just talk about what we can do with them and what they are and how that works. So we'll start with a little bit of background. When we talk about Chromebooks, we talk about all this stuff. We're talking about the cloud. Now, what was the cloud? The cloud, for a while, was a marketing term that basically represented, the internet. Now, we don't think of it much. Everything we do pretty much has an online component, so we don't really think of it as being different. But there was a time when it started that the cloud kind of represented, out there. So if you look at diagrams that were originally created by network administrators. So here's an example, and what they would do is they'd say, oh, here's our firewall, and here's a laptop or a desktop or our servers or whatever. And the cloud just represented beyond their wall, something out beyond their infrastructure. Nowadays, like I said, most things have internet capability. Most things are connected more than ever. Also, it's important to note kind of in a domain and outside of a domain. So in a domain, if we're in like RSU19.net, for example, which we are in right now, in our school domain, or if you're in your own school domain, that has certain services and certain things you can do inside that domain, which is a little bit different than if you're on your own personal Gmail account. There's a lot of overlap as far as features, but they're two different entities. One of the benefits of having a domain and doing it that way is, one, we're able to manage Chromebooks, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. But also, we can also manage accounts. And why that's important is if you have students, for example, from afar, a student forgets their password or, doesn't sure what to do, we can help them remotely, where we wouldn't be able to necessarily on their own personal Gmail account. That's a really important distinction. I know one thing that has happened in the past, pretty much once every couple months, I would have a student come to me and all upset that they logged into a shared computer somewhere where, everyone could get to, like a library computer or whatever. They did their work and they walked away. They closed out the browser, but they didn't actually sign out. And so they lost some stuff. Somebody else walked up behind them and signed in and said, oh, I'm on as so-and-so. And they would maybe delete some things or whatever. And so one of the benefits of having, the closed apps domain is that we can restore up to 30 days anything that was deleted. And so we have a conversation about making sure that you are signed out once you're done your session, especially on a shared computer. One of the special things about Chromebook specifically is when they are signed in, when you are a student and you sign into the Chromebook, you're basically, that's it, meaning that it's not a shared device in that sense where you're a single person signed in at a time. That's a little different than a PC or a Mac or a desktop. Those you could have multiple people signed in on different browsers, that kind of thing. But on a Chromebook, very much, typically you are signed into one account on the device, and that's pretty much it, which is, again, a benefit for students. Also, want to log in from any services. I don't know about you, but it's very easy to get, login fatigue. One more login, one more password for another account. So one of the benefits of the Google Apps domain, being in that domain, is that you have that one username, that one password, and that allows you access to dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of accounts. And you can connect those to your Google account. And the benefit of that, again, is, well, we can help restore it if you need to, or if a student forgets their password, that kind of stuff, we're able to help them. So those type of things are really important going forward. Generally cross-platform. Now, the Chromebook itself, and then we start talking about the hardware a little bit, I want you to think about this. Think about it as if you opened up, let's say you had a PC, like a desktop or a laptop or a Mac or any of those non-Chromebook devices, and you just opened the browser Chrome, full screen, and that's all you did. You didn't go anywhere else. That's basically, in a nutshell, what a Chromebook is. There's nothing kind of behind that. That means there's no operating system. Chrome is the operating system. And again, like everything, there's pros and cons of that. The benefit of that is that, management-wise, we're able to kind of lock it down if we need to. If we need to, restrict certain places or allow certain things. If we need to push something. Now, again, this has happened in the past where we need to push out, for testing, or let's say there's a certain app, or right now there's been the Google Meet extension that is the grid view that didn't exist, a month ago. So we were able to push that out to all of our students remotely. And so those type of benefits are really, especially now in this really virtual environment, those are incredibly important because students don't really have to know anything about it. They just know that it appears on their machines. Those type of features, they can be done in other services like Macs or PCs. There are other solutions that do that. The biggest difference I would say is that the Chromebook is designed for that. That's what it's made for specifically, so that there's not a lot else going on besides that remote management. As I mentioned earlier, when you sign into the Chrome browser, so the browser itself, it's kind of like having your own, desktop basically follow you around, a kind of a portable desktop. I'll just show you real quickly here. Again, there's two different places. So if I look at my screen here, let me make sure I'm on the right one. There we go. If I look up here in the upper right, so if I'm into Chrome, this is signed into the browser Chrome to an account. I can also be signed into the Chrome browser itself. And again, why those two things? Here's the distinction. The Chrome browser means that your stuff will follow you. So like my bookmarks and my extensions and all my different kind of things I make, this be like the setup the way I want it to be. And when you sign into a Chromebook, you're signing into that as if the browser itself. If I'm in the browser here, I could be signed into actually different accounts inside of it. So if I want to jump back and forth from one account to another, and that's a little bit weird, but that's kind of how it's built. In the Chrome browser, in the Chromebook, you really can't do that. When you're signing a Chromebook, you're kind of in as itself. Now, there is a possibility of an incognito window, which we will talk about, but we don't use that with our students. That's disabled. So basically, when they're signed in, it's them. And that's just the easiest way to manage all that. Just showing how to. Another thing that's really important, and we don't talk about this as much as we probably should in education, but this idea of what's called a data silo. And a data silo is something where you put a lot of information into it, but it's really difficult, if not impossible, to get that out of it. And we want to be really mindful of that with our students. So if you think about it, a good example I like to use is Facebook. Facebook, you can add pictures, you can add text, you can add video, you can add all this stuff, but there's no button. There are ways to do it, but they're non-trivial ways to be able to take all your stuff out of Facebook. If I want to click a button and say, okay, I want everything. I want all my stuff from Facebook and I want to download it as a copy that I have myself. There's no real way to do that. And why is that? Well, they don't want you to leave, right? Even when you delete your account, it takes, I think, 60 days before it's actually really deleted. So one of the things about that is they don't want you to transfer that to somewhere else. Google specifically gives you options to be able to do that. So for example, google.com/takeout. This allows me to select all the different things that I have in Google right here. So all the different services. Let's say I've got Blogger and Chrome and Sites and Classroom and what else do I have here? Drive, my Google Drive. So if I want to look at my Google Drive right here, look at Advanced Settings. I could choose how I want to download those files. So if I want to download them as a Word document, as a PDF, do I want to download the drawings as images? Do I want to download the forms? presentations as a PowerPoint or as a PDF, all these different things. I can actually make a local copy of all these individual pieces and download them to have them myself. Here's my photos, all these different stuff. So those are the types of things that they basically want you to be able to kind of back away from. So if you want to download your stuff and take it with you, you have that option going into it. That's not being stuck into a data silo. Additionally, there's another service called Transfer. Now, I don't think it's going to work on, it won't work in this situation because I'm not signed into my school account right now. But basically what it is if you have two accounts and you want to transfer information from one account to another account, from a Google account to another one. A real good example of this is one we've used before, where somebody over the summer gets married, so their last name is Smith, say, and then by next fall it is Jones, and so they want to transfer all their data from one account to another, or some situation like that. So you can have the two accounts. It's built right into Google Apps, and it'll transfer all that data from one to the other very easily. Now let's talk hardware. Okay, so many of you either maybe you're using Chromebook right now, or you've used a Chromebook in the past. You see these stats, for a long time they were really rising in popularity in education compared to other, comparable type of devices. There's a couple of reasons why. One is the price. There's no question. Chromebooks have been cheaper than other devices. One of the reasons for that is we are not actually saving things on the machine itself. All the hard work, all the real processing is done in the cloud, meaning it's done online. So when you sign into Google Drive and you're working on a Google Doc or a document or something like that, you're not working on your machine itself, really. You're actually working on the cloud. Now, you can have offline access. That means you can, save things so it'll copy from the cloud, from the internet to your computer itself. And that's what's built into a Chromebook. So when a student signs into a Chromebook themselves, it's making local copies just of that work that's connected, that Google Drive work, for example. So if they went offline, they could keep working on something. When, online came back on again, say, it would resync up. Not everything that you use does that, but the main things, the productivity suite, like docs, sites, sheets, slides, that kind of stuff would do it. Now, they wouldn't be able to search for things offline. Obviously, they couldn't use Google to search for something, for an image or something, but they can still work on a document while it's offline. Another benefit of the Chromebooks, the reason why it's on the rise, is not only price, but also their functionality has been better and better. It's a different mindset. It's a different model. It's not one that's better or the worse, but it's a different way of looking at it. Traditionally, if we looked at a PC, let's say, years ago, we'd spend quite a lot of money. Let's say we're buying a Mac. We spend $1,000 on a laptop for our students and then use it for 4 years, say. Cool. That same device, and we actually have in our district, we had Macs that were, way older than that, 8 to 10 years old, that were still chugging away just because that's what we had. And they physically, the hardware-wise, they were still usable because they physically could still work, and they were built very well. The drawback is, of course, the processing power and the stuff, the innards, the guts to it is 10 years old now, so kind of out of date. Chromebooks are cheaper, but they're also cheaper made. Again, you don't have a $1,000 Chromebook that's going to, they don't cost $1,000, but they're just made to be a $200, $300 machine. And that's kind of the trade-off. And what you're able to do then is you're able to buy, 2 or 3 or 4 versions of those Chromebooks in the same lifespan as a, say, more expensive single device. Again, it is a trade-off. It's not perfect, but the value of that is in 4 years, that same device, that same $300 will get you something that's much better. These things are rolling over all the time. They're constantly improving, they're constantly getting faster, cheaper, and just like all technology, right? So a couple of ways to compare Chromebooks, and I'll send you this site here. This is called ChromebookChart.com, and this isn't, this is just a really nice site to start with. If I was in the market to buy a Chromebook myself, okay, I want to buy a machine. What do I want to get? Well, there's so many options out there. Just like all technology is overwhelming, so many options. So here's some things that I would start to use to narrow it down. Well, here's my criteria. For example, I wouldn't buy a Chromebook less than 4 gigs of RAM. That'd be my floor, my minimum. The screen size obviously is depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a smaller one, 11-inch, 13, 15, that's really personal preference as far as how big you want the machine itself to be. And then finally, nowadays, I wouldn't buy one without touch because of the ability to turn on the Play Store, and we'll talk about that in a second. But basically, make them into a tablet. I'm going to switch over real quickly right here to show you. Okay, so I just have a Chromebook here. Let's see if it's on right here. Again, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but you get the idea. You don't have to see what's going on the screen. You just got to understand. So this is a Chromebook that we have for our high school students and for our teachers at the RSU-19. I know you've seen the smaller black ones, the Lenovo's, or the Dell ones that the middle schoolers have. There's different levels that we have. They all do basically the same thing. The biggest differences are, the size of the screen. Some of them do not have touch. A couple of them don't have touch, a few models. Most of them do now. This one also has the ability, what's called the convertible. That means it can flip upside down. Now this converts now, it is now in tablet mode. And so I'm able to use tablet specific devices or applications as if I would have a regular, let's say an iPad or an Apple tablet or a Android tablet. And so I can use the Play Store. And this is going to look very familiar. This is basically the Play Store as you've seen before if you go to your phone, like a smartphone. And so the benefit of that is there are some applications that are designed more for that touch interface. So I can, use, let's say, this drawing app or a writing app or something that's used specifically for that. And then if I want the Chromebook component back again, I just flip it back over again. And now here I go, and I'm back to my regular laptop. So more and more of our devices that we're buying now for our students have that capability. Again, we're not 100% yet, and I don't believe any of the younger grades, the elementary grades, have that built in. Am I muted? All right. I think, Andrea, you're saying I have audio issues. Can everybody else hear me? It looks like audio is coming through. I'm not sure. Maybe something on your end. You can double check. But so it's not so much that the younger grades, like I said, K through 4, those don't necessarily have that that ability to flip over at the younger grades, but certainly middle school on, we've kind of added that. And as we go forward, as we're getting new machines and looking for that, that is definitely something that we built into that, because I just think it's an easy add-on and adds functionality that we wouldn't have otherwise. So if I was looking for a machine, I'm going to go back to that Chromebookchart.com. As I mentioned here in the upper left, I'm going to say, you know what? I want at least 4 gigs of RAM. Storage, how big of a hard drive do I want? Honestly, on a Chromebook, you really don't need a big hard drive because you're not saving things on it. You might download a picture, every once in a while just to store it and then upload it again or something like that. But most of the time, 99% of the time, you're not going to store things. So I'm not too worried about storage. Screen size, again, that's personal preference. I would say I'm going to want at least a 13, if not a 14 to 15 size screen. I probably wouldn't want to go less than a 13 for myself. Do I want, convertible? That's the one I mentioned that can flip over. Sure, let's look at convertible ones. Do I want touchscreen? Yes. Do I want fanless HD screen? Do I want a higher quality screen? So this right here really helps me, kind of narrow down, okay, here are my options now that I have. So let's look at this one right here. This is a Lenovo Yoga. And it'll show me right here. And that's a little bit more expensive than I'd want to spend. But you get the idea. You can look around and kind of see what they have for options. It will help you narrow that down if you're in the market for one and looking specifically for different features. All right. Some of the other things that you can do with these, there are other types of hardware, not just Chromebooks, like the laptop type versions. This is one called a Chromebox. Now we have a handful of these around the district. These are basically, I don't know, about twice the size of a deck of cards, so about that big. And they're used as desktops. Like you plug that into a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse, and it runs just like a Chromebook. Now, if you think about it, probably physically, the most demanding aspect of a Chromebook gets to be the keyboard, things that's gonna, the kids are pounding on all the time. So by having a Chromebox, you're able to add those to a monitor, add those to a keyboard and a mouse. And when it's time to replace one of those, keyboard, you can very cheaply just replace the keyboard and keep moving on. So we do have a handful of Chromeboxes around. They typically are a little bit more expensive than Chromebooks, but they're also quite a bit faster typically. So they're not really portable in the sense they actually come with mounts that you can attach them to the back of a monitor, so you could keep it all together as one thing, which is pretty cool. Another piece of hardware that we have a handful of these around the district. So these are called Chrome Bits, and they look like they're big thumb drives. Now, where we're using those, any of you that were in the classroom and your projector, you had like a cordless mouse and keyboard, and your projector had a computer built right into it. That's what we're using the Chrome Bits for. They seem to work really, really well. They basically, that little plastic end would pop off, and there's an HDMI cord there that would plug right directly into the projector. At the other end is there's a USB port where you would plug in the remote for the keyboard and mouse, and off we go. And it was set up so pretty much anywhere in the school, if you walked into a room, there's a keyboard and mouse, you could sign into your Google account and you're good to go. Every room had a built-in computer right into the projector itself. So these are less expensive. These are around $80. So less expensive than a regular Chromebook, and we pretty much outfitted almost every room with these. And I know a lot of teachers really like them because they can just walk in and they're ready to go. They have kind of changed the model of these now, so we'll see going forward if they're still around. We also have used these in the hallways for some of our signage. So if you're walking down the hallway and you see like a TV on the wall and it's showing a slideshow and it's just kind of getting updated, that's how we're using that as well. And finally, just to mention this as another option, this is called the Chrome. Not a Chromebit. This is a Chromecast. And so what a Chromecast does, it's kind of like an Apple TV or a Roku or those type of devices in the sense that you're going to stream something to your TV. This is on a computer. They're only about $30 or $35, so they're not very expensive. But they plug into HDMI on this end over here, and they plug in for power. And then what you can do is you can take, let's say, your phone or your tablet or your own laptop, something you have, and you can cast it. You can send it up to using this Chromecast. That way that everybody could see it. So let's say, for example, I had Netflix on my phone. I wanted to cast that to this this Chromecast, which is plugged into my TV, my big screen TV. It's going to cast it and play there, and we're good to go. Or YouTube video or whatever. Most media, most things that will cast will play on your phone or on tablet. You can cast it up there. One of the kind of differences between this version and other ones is, like for example, if you're used to an Apple TV or a Roku, with an Apple TV, if I cast my Mac's screen up to the Apple TV called Apple Share, the drawback with that is my screen is going to mirror up there, but it stays whatever is on my screen. With a Chromecast, if I cast that video, let's say a YouTube video from my laptop, and I cast it up to the screen, it's playing up on the screen while my laptop is still available to do whatever I want. So again, not very expensive, about $35 for that hardware. Which also brings us to another, this is kind of a software version of this. This is an app called Cast for EDU. And what it does is it allows you as the teacher. So let's say your machine is plugged into the projector at the front of the room, and you have a student, you want to share their screen to everybody. Okay, so how it's going to happen, instead of them having to bring up their Chromebook, plug it into the projector and show it that way, their screen is going to cast to yours. Now they give you a unique number. So you can actually click this and they'll say, okay, Johnny, what's your number? It's 123. You type that in, and then you're seeing their screen on your screen, which is projected on the projector. And so it's a free, easy way to do screen shares of your class. And the benefit of that is that, kids can like, hey, I'm doing a report, I'm doing a presentation on frogs. They do their presentation on their laptop, their slideshow, say, and you're showing it up screen up front. It's super easy. Once it's installed, it works pretty slick and pretty straightforward. And again, that's a free add-on. The management. Now, we're not going to talk too much about this, but it's worth noting that as we're going forward, because Chromebooks are all managed through the district or through the domain, you as the manager, so in our case, our tech department, we really have almost total control of what happens to these devices. For example, this is a good example, I think. One concern that came up was, we're letting all our devices went out to students as they needed for this situation we're in, which is totally understandable. But one of the questions was, well, what happens when we want to get them back? And if some students like, well, I lost it, or I can't find it, or it's gone, we are able to remotely, what we call brick these machines, basically make them totally useless. They are now a paperweight. They can't be turned on. They can't be used. Nothing can happen with them because they're managed. And so that's a pretty straightforward thing that we can do. So basically it would become useless for a student to not bring it back. It's not a machine that can be reused for something else. That can't really be said by other devices. If I have a PC or a Mac or a tablet, you can lock them down, but usually if you have physical access to a device, to a PC, there's a way around it. That's just how it's built. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. The Chromebooks, again, there's nothing really on them themselves. It's all pretty much remote, so it's not too hard to make it so that it's basically they become paperweights if we wanted to turn that on if we had to. So that type of thing, we're able to push stuff out. We're able to remotely kind of reach it if we need to, and that's all beneficial in this situation where if we have a student that has an issue, they need our help. We can turn on, Chrome Remote Desktop, which we've talked about before, I think week before last, which is basically our ability for us to be able to see into their machine and help them out and make fixes and kind of jump back. So all these type of things add up to benefits for our kids. The apps themselves. Now, I did want to spend a little bit of time on this. So one of the kind of pushbacks, and it's a legitimate one with Chromebooks, is, you know what, they're not as fully featured as, say, my MacBook or my PC laptop or whatever. There are certain things they can't do, and that's certainly true. It's basically to think about it this way. If you think about different vehicles, right? You've got a truck, you've got a car, you've got a bicycle, you've got a dump truck, you've got a different types of vehicles do different things better. They all move, they're all transportation, but some do some things better than others, and some things are more generic. So if I have a pickup truck, that can be used for a lot of different things, but that's not as good a people mover, say, as a van, which isn't as good a hauler as a pickup truck, that kind of thing. So a Chromebook is kind of in the middle. And what I mean by that is you can absolutely do creative things. And if you look right here, so this link will bring us to, this is the Chromebook App Hub. And this is one of the links, if you look on there. So it's chromebookapp.hub.withgoogle.com. These are all kinds of ideas from Google, of different ways that you can use Chromebooks, a little bit more kind of in depth than just, say, for typing papers or for pretty straightforward, productivity stuff. So for example, if I scroll down here, here's one. So this is actually one that I did, 3D modeling with Tinkercad. If you click on this, this is one that I created here for Google as far as a session, and you can look through. This is using Tinkercad to do 3D modeling with a Chromebook. And so again, that idea that Chromebooks can create, can build, and this is a pretty straightforward one as far as that goes. This is using Tinkercad, which is a 3D modeling piece, which is cool. But if I go back to ideas here, there's all kinds of different things. I can filter by idea category if I want. Here's creativity, here's literacy. Let's do storytelling, all kinds of cool stuff. Subject areas, if I want to, kind of drill down that way. Age ranges, if I want older kids, younger kids. This will help them filter. Let's look at another one here. Hero's Journey. I'm not sure what this one is. Let's check this one out. Oh, it's by Sean. Cool. So scroll down here. And these will give you all the different ideas of what you can do and give you little lessons. And really, the whole idea is to kind of show you what's possible that you may have not known about, different types of apps. And most of these, again, you can install. If there is one, if you have a situation where you're trying to install one and you really want to, and it's giving you a hard time, it's not even letting you add it, just let us know. We can certainly push it if it comes up to that. These all should be open for teachers, so it shouldn't be an issue. But if it is, absolutely let us know. And if it's one that we should push to, everybody, again, let us know about that too. If it's one that we should have, all students have, we try to be a little bit judicious about that because we don't want them popping up for them if it's kind of interrupting what they're doing. But if it's not, if it makes sense to, then absolutely let us know. We can add that. That's a little bit different, same idea, but a little bit different than the web store. Now, we have talked about the web store. The week before last, we did a whole episode on, apps, extensions, and add-ons. But if I go to the Chrome web store, these are little things. Some of them are apps, some of them are extensions, but these are little programs that are going to add functionality to my browser. Now, in the case of a Chromebook, the Chromebook basically is the browser. So if I add, for example, a theme right here, I'm going to click on themes. If I add a different theme, it's going to add it to my browser, which in effect means it's going to add it to my Chromebook if I'm on my Chromebook. Right now, for this stream right here, I've been using a PC just because I can switch back and forth accounts. But we could do that in Chromebook just as easily. And so if I add a theme, for example, that's going to switch my Chrome browser, which again, on a Chromebook is going to switch the entire thing. So just a way to think about it. It's a little bit weird. Like I said, once you get used to it, not a big deal. One thing I do want to mention about themes, just because I've seen this come up as questions from students and from teachers, there's a lot of cool themes on here. There's a lot of pretty ones. Just know that if you grab a theme and if you add it, and if all of a sudden your home page, when I go to a new tab, is what's called hijacked, that means it's not what you're expecting. If I click on this and it goes to askjeeves.com or goes to something that I didn't set up, you probably want to remove that theme. Because one of the reasons why themes work is people will create them, not all of them. Some of them are perfectly fine. And there's not going to be any that I know of that are going to do real damage, to your machine or anything like that. But if you click on one of these and it's like, wait, it changed my homepage, I didn't do that, then you might want to just remove that theme. Why they do that is because for them, it's worth creating this cool theme about, space exploration or whatever, enchanting places around the world. By them giving it away for free, if they change your homepage and it goes to AskJeeves.com, for example, Ask Jeeves will pay them a little bit of money for sending more people traffic their way. That's how they make money doing it. Here's superhero sketches. It's all kinds of stuff. So somebody created these. Sometimes they do it just for fun, which is great. But sometimes they do it so that if they do that, they're hoping to kind of get a little bit of money that way. If it doesn't change, don't worry about it. You're probably perfectly fine. But that's one thing that I've seen happen to a number of teachers. And then finally, docs and add-ons. So we talked about add-ons before, but like I said, these are little programs that add functionality to individual features inside of docs or sheets or slides. So if you've got a app that's your entire Chromebook itself, a extension just for the browser, and then an add-on is just for an individual Google Doc or individual Google slide or individual Google spreadsheet. Again, there's the layers of this. And again, I know it gets confusing, but if you want more deep dive, we did a whole show about this. We can revisit it at some point if people want to. I can put if you look at the archive, I don't remember which day it is. Actually, I can check real quickly here. It was on episode. Let me sure I get the right one. Right here, 11, episode 11. So if you want to jump back and see that one, that's all about apps, extensions, and add-ons. One final thing I wanted to share. So let me just pull it up here. Again, so this is something that will work on some of your Chromebooks. The Chromebook has to be able to have that convertible view, so they're able to allow Android apps. Well, what does that mean? That means, for example, if something that would run on your phone, if you have an Android phone and you have an app that runs on that, that's a different platform, right? It's mobile. Well, you can run those apps on the convertible Chromebooks. And the reason why that's beneficial is there are certain apps that are really designed for touch. There are some programming apps we use with our kids that are really designed for students to use their fingers to program around or draw or manipulate in some way. It is a mobile device different than a regular quote unquote laptop or Chromebook. And so from any PC that you have, any of the Chromebooks you have that are convertibles that flip over, they do have the App Store available. We have a selection of apps. We don't have all of them. If you notice here, again, I know it's probably going to be a little bit hard to see, but it's worth sharing this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but so this is just the apps that are available right now as far as like from the school. And if you have one like, hey, you know what, Kern, we have other apps that, we really should have on there. Why we need this other one that I found, I was playing around my phone. It's really cool. Let us know. We can push those out. We don't allow the App Store totally open. And the reason why is because there's all kinds of stuff in there. Kids could install games. Some of them may not be perfectly appropriate, that kind of thing. So we keep the App Store basically what's called whitelisted, where everything's closed except for what we allow through. But you as a teacher, if you find anything that you think is worthwhile, please let us know, and we're happy to jump in there and push those out for students. We just don't want to let that open up for the world, because it ended up being chaos if we just opened it up and let everybody, all the students install whatever they wanted. That said, we are always trying to find more good examples of different types of apps. I know we have some calculator apps in there. We have some reading apps. All kinds of different stuff that are specifically designed for mobile, and having that convertible Chromebook allows you to do that. So that's a really huge benefit of that. So I think with that looks like a good place to stop as far as our Chromebook discussion. I'm going to jump over to see about questions, not only for questions for today, but also questions from the last couple days. All right, so we had a couple questions here. One came from Gail, and she was asking specifically about audio recordings, having kids record audio, just audio only, not video, and how do we get that, submit that and get them shared to you. So good news, Gail. I am going to do a whole session about audio tomorrow. That's my plan. For tomorrow's topic is audio recording. Maybe we'll go through the whole process of recording it, editing it, publishing it, taking that audio if you want to upload it and insert it into a Google slide, a slide deck. That was a question that came up, I think, yesterday. So we'll add that as well. But also if you just want to have audio recordings and share that with you directly, or if you want to share with students, that kind of back and forth. So we will do that tomorrow as a whole topic. That's a bigger topic that I want to give it enough time that it deserves. So we will do that. The other question was about getting assignments on Google Classroom to have the turn in feature. So I wanted to show this one. I want to make sure that everybody sees this. We'll do a screen share here. Okay, so if I have a class here, I'm going to just click on one of my classes. I'm going to go to classwork. I'm going to add a new assignment. So I'm going to create an assignment. I'm going to call this is do an essay. If I wanted to add a Google Doc, I could create a Google Doc right here. So here's my Google Doc as a template. Again, thinking this in terms of like a photocopier, like a digital photocopier. If you wanted to hand out papers to the kids to collect them when they're done, you'd make a template first, go to the photocopier, make 20 copies, and hand out each one of them, and then turn it in. So on here, so they're going to be their essay. And I'm going to say, please type an essay about, whatever, about X. So here's their template. Okay. So now if I go back to my classwork, here's this untitled document. This is the important part right here. You don't want students to just view the file. You want to make a copy for each student. And so if you make a copy for each student, let me refresh this page here so we'll update the other page. Okay. So now when I assign this to my students, they're each going to get their own copy called essay. And actually, I'll assign it to show you. Oh, I didn't put a due date. I really should put a due date on that, but I forgot to. Okay, so if I go to my students now, let me jump back to my stream. There's my assignment. And if I click on one of these students here and see their work, they don't have a grade yet, but they've been assigned this actual assignment here, essay, and I can view it right here. And so when they are done that assignment, they'll be in the upper right. It will say turn in. Instead of share, typically there's a share button here in the upper right. It will just say turn in. One thing younger students do, typically I find the first couple times, immediately when they get that assignment, they click turn in, like instantly. So if they do that, it's not a big deal. They can click on it again and click unsubmit, which means they're taking it back. When I explain this to the kids, I explain it to them as, in our classroom, we have that physical, drawer that we put in papers. Every, classroom in the world, every elementary or middle school classroom in the world has a little rack in their room somewhere that kids hand homework in. So this is a digital version of that, where they have the rack, they're submitting it, they're turning it in. You have it. While you have it, students have it only read only. That means that they cannot make changes, which makes sense because you have a copy of it, you're looking at it, maybe you're making comments or whatever. During that time, they can see it, but they can't edit it. When you say, yes, I'm done, I'm going to return it. When you return it back to them, that's when they can edit and make changes and go forth from there. So this up here will be replaced. If it doesn't, what most likely is happening is, let me jump back here to the coursework. Whoops. Right here, you just want to make sure that it said, make a copy for each student. I'm thinking that's probably what it is right there. The assignment. All right. Let's check here, see if there's any last question. I think we're good. All right, awesome. So a couple things, kind of, housekeeping, show notes type stuff. Tomorrow we are going to be doing audio specifically. Thursday, I would really like to get as many people as we can to the Thursday show. If you know other people that would be interested, we're going to be talking about what's called Google's Applied Digital Skills. And it's like basically a full curriculum that they provide that we're going to share with you guys, and everyone will have access to it. But anything that you want to offer to your students, most of the work is already done. For example, if you want to give them a resume creator, or if you want to give them a slideshow presenter, or maybe a slideshow that has choose your own adventure steps in it, or any kind of thing, there's dozens and dozens of pre-made lessons and activities already created. You as a teacher basically can just pick and choose which ones you think would apply to your content, and you can share with them. So I'm really hoping to get as many people as we can for the Thursday show. I think it'll be really useful to a lot of people. We'll go through the steps. It will probably take the entire hour that day. And my guess is we'll go from 1 to 2 on Thursday. And that's the plan. And then let's see, we had tomorrow is audio, Thursday is applied digital skills, and Friday will be the Google Earth web. And we'll talk about Google Earth, but the web view of it. So I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you again tomorrow.